Welcome back. Welcome back. The Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform, in collaboration with the GIZ, is hosting a workshop on food security and agronomic support initiatives with the goal of strengthening the resilience and coordination of Namibia's agri-food sector. The three-day workshop is being held under the theme Towards a Resilient and Coordinated Agri-Food Sector. To give more detail, I'm joined now by the Acting Director in the Directorate of Agriculture Production, Engineering and Extension Services from the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform. Mr. Ben Haraseb is on the line. Sir, good evening and welcome to the Daily Roundup.
Good evening and thank you for having me.
Now, food security has become a global challenge, but perhaps to start with, give us a brief overview of the food insecurity situation on the African continent.
Yeah, it's true that it's a big challenge, not only in Africa, but across the globe. And basically what I will say is that looking at the report from the Global Alliance for Food Security, it indicates that 1 out of 5 people in Africa goes to bed hungry. And that is, if we put it in the value or monetary terms, it's close to 140 to 205 million people that are going hungry, and that is in such a crisis. And therefore, I think as the continent, we should be able to do something about it.
How dire would you say is the food insecurity situation in Namibia, and how's it doing compared to other countries?
Looking at the Namibian situation, we are also in the same boat as any other countries. And if you look at, again, according to the 2022 Global Hunger Index, Namibia is actually one of the countries that is also affected, as we are currently ranked 78 out of 116 countries in the continent across in the world. Therefore, what makes it very difficult is that we import around close to 60 to 80% of our food, as we cannot produce what is needed in the country.
Mm-hmm. The multi-sectoral workshop started today on the agronomic sector. What prompted the ministry to initiate this workshop, and what role is the GIZ play in partnership?
The Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform, with the assistance of GIZ, is currently hosting the workshop, as you have indicated. GIZ responsible or assisting the ministry with the funding of the workshop. What we have then realized as the ministry is that there are various role players in the sector, and the efforts that they are bringing forth, it's actually segregated, and hence we feel that the sector can contribute more to the GDP of the country. And we felt that it's beginning of the year, it's critical for us to be able to bring these sectors, role players together, so that we can then address the issues or the challenges within the value chain of agronomy and horticulture. Mm-hmm. We have the producers, the value adders, and then the retailers and the wholesalers, and so on and so on. So we feel that we should be able to push the agronomic and horticulture sector to a level where they can contribute similar to the livestock subsector or the mining, and so on and so on.
Briefly talk to us about the theme, which is Towards a Resilient and Coordinated Agri-Food Sector.
We know that only if we are resilient, we should be able to withstand various challenges that come across the sector. However, I'll look at it from the perspective of food system transformation, which we have developed as a country. There are various pathways that we have identified, which we feel we should be able to maximize for us to be able to benefit. And hence, one of the subsectors that we identified is agronomic and horticulture. And by bringing the various role players together, we will just be able to maximize the benefit that is will flow to the subsector, and that's very critical for us. We are not excluding other subsectors in the country. We'll still be looking at them. Example, the livestock sector, and so on. Yeah, but for now, as a starter, we are only focusing on agronomic and horticulture.
You mentioned earlier in our conversation how Namibia imports about 60 to 80% of our food. So do you think that, absolute food security is achievable for a country like Namibia that so heavily is dependent on imports?
Yes, from my perspective, it's possible. We should be able to sufficiently produce sufficient food for us to be able to be self-sufficient. Just to look at the maize production in the country, we're almost there in terms of producing what is needed in the country. And I believe if we can then focus on the other commodities also, we should be able to push so that we can then cut the importation of other commodities in the country. However, we know that 100% will not only rely on the local products. There will also be always a need to import, but the best is to have at least 90% of the products that are produced locally that can access the local market and that can be utilized by the consumers. The other aspect that I will touch on is the investment in agriculture sector, which is very, very critical, because without investment, we will not be able to achieve the food sufficiency that we are talking about. And even if we have the investment, if we do not coordinate as the stakeholders in the sector and make use of the investment that is coming in the sector effectively and efficiently, we will not be able to achieve the full self-sufficiency. And therefore, I think this workshop is the platform for us to be able to engage each other and then pull into one direction.
Just finally, Mr. Haraseb, perhaps you can talk to us about some of the key discussions that are set to take and some of the notable speakers.
All right, thank you. As you have mentioned, that we have started with the workshop today. I know that the scene was already set by our Minister, Honorable Karen Strideline, which really emphasized on some of the aspects that we have to look at as a sector or the subsector. However, if I have to mention each and every speaker on the program, I think I will take the whole 1 hour for me to explain to you. But what I will say is what is very interesting at the moment is the World Cafes that we are hosting. It gives us the opportunity for us to discuss various issues. Example, the improvement, coordination, and cooperation within the subsector. Looking at the enhancing of food and nutrition security. Also looking at supporting the capacity building within the subsector, and also the strengthening of the food system and the policy implementation. So that is just some of the themes that we have been discussing today during the World Cafe. And then tomorrow and Friday we'll be discussing the issues of value chain development, promoting agricultural trade and marketing, exploring of the agri financing and investment, and then also the involvement of the youth and women in agriculture. But what is more critical also is the panel discussions that will take place, where we will unpack the Public Procurement Act, which will discuss the issue of benefiting the local smallholder producers, and also the private sector benefit to the local smallholder producers. How are they going to benefit? The last two panel discussions will focus on how can a value product, whether it's on the small scale or on a large scale, can be promoted to brought to the formal market. And then lastly, again, as I've mentioned before, the youth and the women, how they will play more active role in the agriculture value chain. Because I know that not only we have been told that we exclude youth and women, but what we are saying is marginalized and disabled community out there should also be involved, and that are some of the discussions that we will have.
Thank you. Mr. Ben Haraseb, thank you so much for your time this evening, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and you're welcome.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we speak to Frida Mukufa from the Namibia